have you been thinking about launching a podcast? Today, we are talking about how to find guests and monetize your podcasts without waiting around for sponsors. And today we have a special guest with us, Kelly Roach. If you don't know Kelly, she is a former NFL cheerleader turned Fortune 500 executive. Today, she is the CEO of Kelly Roach International. She built her business on the side of her corporate job before taking it full-time. And when her daughter was a newborn, she doubled her business and retired her husband. Like, for all of you moms out there, you're probably like, what? So this is for you today. In addition to her online coaching programs and private mentoring, Kelly is also the host of the top-rated podcast, Unstoppable Success Radio, and the author of the 11-time international bestseller, Unstoppable: 9 Principles for Unlimited Success in Business and in Life. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. So excited to chat with you today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. It's always fun to talk podcasting because before you get into the world of it, it's like this kind of weird thing that's off to the side that, you know, you never really see yourself doing or being a part of. And then as soon as you start, I know for me, and you probably felt the same way with yours, I've said since the day I started my podcast, I can't believe I didn't do this from day one starting my business because it has been such a huge part of our growth over the last 2 years.
Yeah. So you were saying before, you've been running your podcast for almost 2 years now.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Crazy. That's a long time. How has podcasting evolved, do you feel, since back in the day? Because I know some people get worried, like, is it too late to jump into podcasting?
Yeah, it's definitely not too late to get into podcasting. And in fact, you know, now I think with the technology that we have available and the resources and training available, it's like a better time than ever because yes, of course the market is crowded, but like that's business today, right? So you can't, if you're in a market that's very lucrative, chances are it's also going to be very competitive. So that's really the wrong mountain to take, so to speak.
Right.
But from the standpoint of getting into podcasting, it's the best time ever because there's so much great training and so many resources out there. There's a proven path to profitability. And it's such a good way to position yourself from a credibility and authority standpoint, but most importantly, to grow your business and actually achieve your financial goals, which most people really don't understand that a lot of the profit in podcasting is from the relationships you build with the audience and the people that then come into your products and programs after becoming a listener. It's not really in the wait and see a plan as far as sponsorship. In fact, you know, we could have pursued sponsors probably a good 6 months to a year ago on our show, and we chose not to because for us, it's the difference between, do we want to guide and direct our listeners to go buy from someone else? Or do we want to guide and direct our listeners to come buy from us? We know that they're spending time tuning into our show every week. Why do we want to send them to a different advertiser instead of back into our own funnel?
That's such a smart point because you've got their attention, you've got their trust. They're there listening to you for a reason.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to get started in podcasting?
Yeah. So for me, it was really the ability to gain visibility and to expand the reach of the content that we were doing. So, you know, we all know that content is such a critical piece of building a successful business. And, you know, obviously we've seen over the last couple of years that, you know, blogging and just posting on social media certainly isn't going to cut it anymore. And so I knew for me, I needed people to be able to feel my energy and interact with me and kind of have a place to feel like they were part of my own community. You know, I had been a guest podcaster for several years prior to, and so I had seen the benefits from that. And I continue to do that. Obviously, that's why I'm here today, because it is so beneficial in reaching new people and connecting and building your audience. But really, if you want to take things to the next level and have your own tribe, so to speak, build subscribers and fans, podcasting is really, bar none, I think, the best way to do it.
Totally. Really getting to go on other people's shows. I was actually amazed when I first started doing podcasting not that long ago, how impactful that was within the networking aspects.
Yes.
Now, when you go to, you know, different events, you have something to offer people. And it's like, hey, I like what you're saying. Come in front of my audience. And it's just so fascinating. I'm like,
it is.
Yeah.
It
Have
is.
you found that has really just blown up your business and brand?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have people coming to us every single day with opportunities and introductions and new guests. And, a lot of the clients that join my higher end coaching packages that are multi-$1,000 investments, they reach out and they say, I've been listening to your show.
Mm-hmm.
My business has been growing because of what I've been learning on Unstoppable Success Radio. I knew it was time to get started working with you. So that's the amazing benefit of, putting yourself out there in a podcast, because buyers today are so much more educated. Mm-hmm. Buyers don't need to take a risk in a buying decision anymore. They have so many ways to verify and validate who they're buying from. And so another thing that's really important to think about from a pricing standpoint, if you want to have, higher tier packages and programs where you can really charge a premium for your services, it's really important that you have a mechanism for people to vet you and to get to know you and to really build that trust factor, so that they're then coming to you when they're ready to make the buying decision, instead of you having to go chase them and prove to them and convince them. You don't need to convince someone that's already been listening to your show for 6 months, 3 times a week, as to why you're the person that's going to be able to help them. You've already been helping them for months and months before then. So I also want to add that podcasting is a very powerful medium for people that struggle with sales and marketing, that really want to share their message with the world and want to grow a business and want to make an impact, but feel very uncomfortable with the marketing piece of things, because it's the perfect medium to sell through serving. Mm-hmm. Right? You go out, you add value for people, you make a difference, you share your knowledge and expertise, they benefit from it. And then at the end, oh, by the way, if you want to learn how you can work with me, shoot me an email or apply here, or, join my email list. So for those of you watching or listening today that are like, yeah, of course, I'd love to grow this great business, but I just can't get over that sales and marketing hump, podcasting is an amazing way to sell through serving.
It's so true. You're priming people with your podcast. Yes. They're getting that experience, getting a taste of what it's like to work with you, what it would be like having you as their coach. When someone looks at someone like you, who's got this amazing business, this really successful podcast, they're like, well, she's got it all together. She's perfect. She knows how to do all these things. I'm a random nobody. What has been one of the most comical or biggest failures as a podcaster? Because we all have those like crazy moments. These are like the war stories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've had everything from like my daughter running in the room when I'm recording, to my dog like shaking its collar, to the postman driving up the driveway. I mean, everything that can go wrong will. And that's kind of the fun thing about being an entrepreneur today, that no one expects perfection. And in fact, the human element is what's so attractive to people. 5 years ago, I would never get on a video wearing like a sweatshirt, a hoodie, and just like not having like bright lights on and doing all that formal setup. But now I'm like, you know what? People want the value. They want the real deal. They want someone that can actually make a difference, that knows their stuff. They don't really care if I'm wearing a sweatshirt because I'm in my house working from home, or whether I'm, dressed up in a suit jacket. And in fact, they'd probably be less interested in what I have to say if I was wearing a suit jacket than if I was wearing a hoodie anyway. So True. I would say for anyone that's thinking about getting started, that's saying to themselves, well, I'm a nobody, I don't have a following, I don't know where to get started. We're all nobodies until we start creating content and put ourselves out there and create our platform. And so many people think, well, I should wait to do this until I have a following. And what they don't realize is you get a following by doing it. It's the action that leads to the subscribers and the fans and the following. It's not the other way around. So it's actually the best thing you could do for yourself if you're at the beginning stages. And in fact, people many times ask me, if I were starting my business over today, like what would I do differently? And I would say I would absolutely start my podcast from day one.
Yep. I wish I started it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't even know it was like a thing that I could do, but it's like when you know better, you do better. So this is your nudge, everybody.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
so
exactly right.
When coming up with your idea for what your podcast is going to be, the topic, the title, the kind of buckets of content that you're going to deliver to your audience, what is some advice that you maybe have on how to narrow that down or get some clarity on what your show's really going to be about and how it's going to serve?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's very important because I talk to a lot of podcasters who are not monetizing their podcasts and who are not getting clients from them. And I always challenge them and I ask them, is there fluidity between the topic and the content, and does that flow directly into your products or programs? And a lot of times there's a disconnect there. And so, just because people are doing a lot of guest interviews or are doing something doesn't mean that your show should model that. It's very important that when someone tunes into your show, they understand clearly who you are, what your business does, what your role as an authority is, what topics you teach on, and how you can serve them. So I think the best answer to your question is look at what do you want the 4 core principles of your business to be about, and ensure that your show directly aligns with that. Because after all, there's no point in attracting a bunch of people to listen to your show that aren't your avatar, that aren't your ideal client, that are going to ultimately go from listening to the show to opting into your email list to then buying one of your products or programs. And starting with that end in mind, even down to every show that you create, is so incredibly important. And it's one of the missing pieces that I find with a lot of podcasters who struggle to monetize. So that's a really, really great question. I'm glad that you asked it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you just kind of broke that down, because it really is. That is the funnel. That's the whole purpose.
Yes.
Well, not the whole purpose, but a large reason why so many people do podcasting, because you're taking that potential customer or client through that funnel. You're warming them up. You're taking them from a cold lead to a hot, spicy, hungry buyer. So I love that.
Exactly.
So when you are mapping out your podcast, you have like a specific schedule that you follow, or I feel like some people will do it once a week or, every single day. Are there any tips around that?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is whatever you commit to, you stick to. So the number one rule with podcasting is that you break trust with your audience the second that you deviate from what you promised to them. If they're expecting to tune in on Wednesday morning and have a new show waiting for them, and there's no new show waiting for them, you've now lost that listener, because that listener is now going to search for a show to listen to on Wednesday morning that's not yours. So first and foremost, commit to a schedule that you can keep. And secondly, when you're thinking about the schedule that you're creating, again, it goes back to what is the strategy for your business? So for example, a couple of the things that we utilize in setting our schedule. Number one, we have a couple of different core principles that are very important to the business, right? We do 3 shows a week, and each of those shows are different. One is a guest interview. One is a teaching segment where I teach something related to one of my 4 core teaching things: mindset, sales, marketing, business growth strategy, leadership. So one show a week is teaching on one of those things. What is that doing? It's drilling in my audience over and over and over again. What am I the authority on? What do I teach on? How can I help you? And then the third segment each week is designed entirely around community engagement. So every Friday we do an Ask Kelly episode. And the reason for that is so that people can become a part of something, so that they can ask questions and see that we really care about creating content for our listeners. It's not about ego of I felt like teaching on this today, or I just, decided you need that. It's really, what are you struggling with and how can I help you? And we really do take those questions that we get from LinkedIn and from Twitter and from email and from Facebook Messenger, and we turn them into episodes. So it's really important to see your podcast as a direct reflection of what you're trying to create in your business. So design segments that are around the core topics that you want to cover. Have seasons that reflect the launch that you're in. So for example, for us, the year is typically divided into 4 different seasons. And those seasons include content that correlates with whatever launch we're building up to, and the topic in and around which we're going to be promoting and driving listeners to take action from the show to the list, and the list to the product or the program. So designing seasons around that. And then just in terms of the topics, I think it's important to be broad enough to give people variety, because everyone craves variety, right? And it's so interesting because people come to me to grow their business, but the shows that always have the highest downloads are the ones on mindset. So I know that
just going to ask you.
People need the inspiration. They want the motivation. Yes, they want the strategy, but the strategy feels like a little bit of work, right? So they need that break. And I know they need that break. And so I try to rotate it between those things. We do an episode every month called Impact Your Health, Grow Your Wealth, Impact Your Health. And it's all about the importance of balancing your life and your business and taking care of yourself on the journey, and understanding that if you compromise that thing now, when you get to that financial or business goal, you're not going to actually get to enjoy the goal. So again, these are just some examples specific to my show, but you could look at any business and say, okay, what are the core principles of what we're trying to create in our community? How do we want this brand to be portrayed to the world? And how do we want to welcome people into our community? And then just have fun with it. I think the biggest thing with podcasting is have fun, because when people hear that in your voice and they pick up on your energy, they want to be a part of that. And obviously, that from I can tell your personality, I can see you on the screen. And that's what people want and need. So I would say, most importantly, have fun, because your listener is looking for a source of energy. And so if you're energized and enthusiastic and excited about what you're teaching about, chances are that's going to roll right onto them.
Mm-hmm. It's so smart that you're doing the Ask Kelly episodes, because in a sense, psychologically, you're really allowing people to participate in building and creating the show, and just automatically they feel like they are a part of it. They feel like they're participating in it in a totally different way.
There's one more thing I want to add about the Ask Kelly episodes, which anyone can do any form of that on their show. But here's the tip for the audience, for people that are listening, that's really important about that. I get the question from people all the time. My clients are constantly asking me, how do you come up with all this content? How do you know what to talk about? How do you figure out what people actually want? I'm like, I don't. I just let them ask me. All of these shows are based on either a question that I get from a listener, a question that I get on social media, a question that I get from one of my current clients. So I don't need to make anything up. And that's the thing. When you open up and remove those barriers between yourself and your audience, and I don't care if you have an audience of 2 people to start, we all start at 0. Every single one of us starts at 0. So whether it's your brother and your cousin, or your mom and your dad, whatever, get questions from people and let that drive you. And then the pressure comes off of you, and you really can have fun, because you're like, wow, this is someone's question that I'm answering. Like, I'm making a difference. I know right now, just at the end of this 30 minutes, that someone's life is going to be positively impacted for the good.
Absolutely. And the other things you were saying too was the idea of repetition, or having your core principles and just continuously establishing yourself as that expert. I think some people are afraid that they're getting sick of their own content, or they're getting sick of telling their own story. But really, if you're sick of talking about it, you're probably becoming that go-to expert on that topic.
Yeah.
Do you find that as well?
I think what you're saying there is incredibly important. And it's important for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm on show probably 250 or something right now. Every show that you do is someone's first time listening to you. You have to remember that. If you're doing a good job with your show, there's more new listeners every week than there was old ones last week, right? So you have to remember that there's someone new coming into your funnel every single day. And that's why the importance of the quality of every show is so critical, because this is someone's first impression every day. So that's number one. Number 2, people require repetition. They require repetition. So you can't allow yourself to forget where you came from. You have to remember that the people that you're a few steps ahead of that are listening to your show, they need that repetition in order for them to grasp the concept that you're teaching and to be able to take it and do something with it. If you're all over the place and every show is covering something completely different, people can never actually take what you're teaching and do something with it. And the way that you're really going to get to the point where people go from listening to the show to buying from you is when they are seeing an impact either in their business or their life or their health, or whatever your show is about. When they see that direct correlation between listening to the show and a result that they're getting, that's when they're going to want to spend money with you. But if you're not repeating something enough for them to be able to actually get it and start generating results from it, you don't have that power. That compacting effect isn't working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of guests and getting people on, I always tell my clients, it's so important to really establish yourself as an expert, because that's one of the fastest ways or easiest ways to get on other podcasts, because people want to know that you are that go-to person. So I'm curious, how do you find guests, and what do you look for when people are either pitching you or when you are out searching for new people to bring on?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, when we're looking for guests, so I have a team member that does our booking, and she does our research, and she does our production and all of that. And really what we're looking for in our guests is someone that has an amazing story of, victory, like the hero's journey, right? Because, the number one thing is that everyone is struggling through something, and everyone needs to see and understand that what they're going through right now is not their final destination. It's just a small little piece of the journey. They're going to get over it. They're going to get through it. And I want them to see the progression of that and what waits for them on the other side. So that's a huge part for us. And then of course, for me, I'm a business growth strategist. I'm very interested in people, both online and offline, that have built businesses of substance, that have stood the test of time, that they've been able to, take up to having, a legitimate team in place, and, really quality work in the world beyond just kind of a quick hit. I'm not all that interested in, the overnight success story that's this one-off random thing that someone did one time that's not replicable. I'm looking for people that have a story of using good principle and good strategy with timeless and proven simple things that everyone listening can pull something for to use in their own case. So those things for me are important when I'm looking at a guest.
Yeah. And when you're doing your research process, do you have, maybe I know for myself, I'm always looking to see if they've done any live videos or what video content they have on YouTube, so that I can get a sense of the person's personality. And if they don't have any of that stuff, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, you're making it harder. So do you guys look at that too? I'm just curious.
Yeah, definitely. So my team definitely scopes everybody out before we, bring someone on the show, and we reject a lot of the pitches that we get. And, I'm sure you're experiencing this as well, but like, once your show becomes really established, I mean, you're getting so many people coming at you every day that you have to get better at knowing how to evaluate them, because I have made mistakes before. I've made a quick judgment call and I've been disappointed with the result. And it was my own fault because I didn't take long enough to vet, because sometimes the bio can be written in such a way that
it's like really juicy.
You're not getting what you think that you're getting before. So yeah, I would definitely say, scoping them out and kind of seeing what their online presence is. Listen to a 2-minute clip of hearing them speak on another show or on a video or whatever the case. And you can tell pretty quickly, what you're getting yourself into.
You kind of know, you could feel it out.
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to ask you too, when you're structuring out your show or, creating interview questions, you have like a system or structure. Some people are so like, I'm going with the flow, whatever happens. And other people are like, I have every single question written out in advance. So what is your take?
I don't like that. I never have people submit interview questions. I prefer that they don't.
Oh, okay.
I like to go off of their bio and ask the questions that I feel will most benefit my audience. So I try to ask things that I think will get them to share something that will give my audience something to grasp onto. I'm always looking for what's the tactical takeaway, or what's the core mindset shift? What's the thing that the people listening can grasp onto and do something with right away? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. But you have to do what works for you. Some people have a very set structure. Some people repeat the same questions on every single show. I personally, I would not enjoy, that would take the enjoyment out of podcasting for me. Right. For me, like, I want to have this, I want to play catch with someone. I don't want it to be pre-scripted, but for other people, that's exactly what they want and it's exactly what they need. So I don't think there's any right or wrong. I just think it's about like, know yourself. For me, in order to sustain doing 3 shows a week, I have to be enjoying the process. I have to feel totally like I'm in the moment with you right now. I need to feel in the moment with my guests, and when I'm recording, and having it pre-scripted kind of removes that for me a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
And exactly. It's a challenge for a lot of people to just kind of trust that the show's going to be good. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about pitching, because on both ends, the way that you pitch and the pitches that come in to your inbox, because I think this is something a lot of people struggle with. And even a lot of my clients, they did not even realize that this was something that they could do. And I was like, yeah, guys, like, do some interviews, get on some podcasts, grow your following. They're like, how do you get on podcasts? I was like, just reach out to the person. They're like, this might be a dumb question, but what do I say? How do I do it? And I was like, okay. I was like, this will be a good one for Kelly. So I would love to hear, like, maybe not the script per se, but like just some bullets of important things you want to include.
Yeah. So, we actually give podcast pitch scripts to our clients because exactly what you just said. People, it seems like such a foreign thing, but then once you start doing it, you're like, oh, okay, that's a lot simpler than I thought. But it seems like this animal when you haven't done it before. So, I think the number one thing is know who you're pitching to, pitch something that's relevant to them, know what the description of their show is, listen to it for a couple minutes at least, and send them an intro message that is really going to benefit their listeners. So know what they're trying to do with their show and share why you will be able to make an impact for their listeners, right? Obviously it's important to share your credentials, share your results, share what it is that you've accomplished, and really give a clear understanding of what is the value that you will deliver for their listeners. Because at the end of the day, it's not so much about you or your story or, your credentials. It's about, is this person's audience going to be more invested in continuing listening to this person's show? So for me coming on today, what is my job on your show? My job is to add enough value for your listeners on your show that your listeners are like, wow, that was an awesome show. I'm definitely not going to miss your show next week. And if that happens, that means I did my job. So when you're pitching yourself, you want to think the same way. What can you offer this host where the host is saying, yes, I really want that content for my audience. And if I offer that content to my audience, that's going to raise the perceived value of my show. And so if you think about it from that standpoint, the other thing that hopefully I'm hoping this makes it feel more comfortable for everybody watching and listening today is that it's not really about you. It's not. It's about their listeners and the value you can offer their listeners. So don't worry about like whether you have the perfect bio or whether you're the most experienced person in your field. That doesn't matter. What matters is what do they want to achieve for their listeners and what can you do to move the host forward and accomplishing their promise that they made in the show that they've created.
Such good advice. Yeah, I've had a couple of people who have really taken the time to listen to specific shows on the topic that they present on, and maybe I've done one on that, and they'll pull a specific thing. Like, I loved in episode blah, 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 when you said this. I thought that was such a great point. And I'm like, wow, I appreciate that as a podcast host because I know that the person is coming to me knowing that, or I know that they actually listen to the show. They're not just trying to get out there. I think that's really important. And exactly what you said, that it's all about how is this going to serve their listeners. So it's important to know what their listeners are actually looking for.
Exactly.
And I thought what you guys did too, which was great, because again, you're just making that person's life easier, is your team sent me a couple of different topics. They said, Kelly can talk about blah, 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 blah with podcasting, this, that, the other thing. And I was like, oh, this is great, because I don't think people realize that that makes the podcast, as a host, it makes your life so much easier to have people coming to you because you're like, all right, cool. You just saved me a couple hours this week.
Yeah. And especially if you can list out topics, where it's like this, or this. And the person's like, oh, sweet. I haven't had anyone on my show recently to talk about this. Yes, that can plug a hole for me. So it's exactly what you said there. You said it made it easier for you.
It saved me time.
That's the whole thing that you want to think about is how can you make it easier for them? And then couple that with what's a hole that you can fill? You can easily scroll in someone's feed of the recent shows and be like, oh, they haven't had anyone on recently to talk about X, Y, and Z. Boom. There you go. There's a hole that you can fill for them.
And I want to ask too about podcast swaps. Is that something that you usually reach out to people and say oh, hey, I'd love to be on your show and I'd love to have you on my show too?
We don't. And the only reason is that so we do 3 shows a week, but we only do 1 guest a week. Right now we have shows with guests recorded through September. So the reason why we don't do that is I'm going on 3 to 4 shows a week and I wouldn't be able to offer spots in a reasonable time frame to the guests. And I already feel bad because when I'm booking guests, I have to tell them, hey, listen, your show's not going to air until this date. And so I'm not at a place where I'm ready to say, I'm going to go to 4 days a week or I'm going to go 5 days a week. Right now, I've committed to 3 and I want to stick to 3. And so until I'm ready to raise that, I haven't got into that. But I definitely would say if you're just getting started and you're not 9 months ahead on guests, absolutely. That's a great way to keep that rolling for sure.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to touch on too, that you pre-schedule or pre-record things way out in advance.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's nice because that's one of the things that catches people up a lot with podcasting. And that's what happens, right? Life comes up, stuff goes wrong, which it always does. Your computer crashes, your dog gets sick, your kid gets hurt, whatever.
Someone cancels. Yeah.
Right. And then you break your promise to your listeners. And it's kind of like the one thing to avoid at all costs is breaking your promise to your listeners. So having that stack of shows in your back pocket so that if you want to go on vacation or you want to take time off or whatever the case, that you can do that without breaking your promise is a huge thing. So I definitely recommend doing that. And also I feel that if you're someone that's thinking about just getting started, you're a little bit of a nervous Nelly about it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's such a big commitment. Yeah. Well, just get yourself a month ahead. So what you can do is you can have a recording day each month and say, okay, on this day each month, I'm going to record 4 or 5 episodes. Those are going to be my episodes for the next month, release one a week, and boom, then you're 4 or 5 weeks ahead instead of feeling the pressure that you have to do it every single week. So there's lots of ways to make podcasting work for you and to not have the pressure of like feeling like you're on a deadline all the time.
Yeah, I'm so glad you just brought that up because batch creation for podcasts, I'm not really doing that a ton, but I think that that's something that can be really, really helpful. I was listening to something with John Lee Dumas, who has Entrepreneur on Fire, and supposedly he cranks out he does an episode every single day. So it's a 7-day-a-week podcast. And he sits down on Monday and does back to back interviews. He's like, but then I have the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I'm in the zone that day. So for those of you who are like either thinking about podcasting or maybe getting into YouTube or whatever it is, like batch creation can take a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to getting sponsors, I know this is something you were like, this is how to monetize without getting sponsors. So, a lot of people are looking for those big partnerships. What can somebody do to start generating income through running their podcast without having that? Maybe they don't have a big following yet, or they're just getting started.
Yeah, definitely. So each episode of the podcast should be designed with a reverse engineered call to action. And this is why I think it's important to have a set strategy in the way that you design your shows. Okay. So for me, that is why I do a teaching segment each week. That is why I do Ask Kelly episode each week. Because those shows are designed with a very specific call to action that's inserted in the show 3 to 4 times that will net someone to take a specific action, whether it's opting in for a specific opt-in or whether it's applying for a strategy session or whether it's reaching out to a team member or whatever the case. So you design each episode with a specific call to action. And essentially, if you're a newer business owner, your number one call to action at all times should be to apply for a conversation with you. So if you're just getting started in business, you want to design your shows to showcase your expertise, add value for the person, build curiosity about what's possible, and then offer them an opportunity to take the next step. And that's a great format to follow for your show. If you're a little bit more advanced and you have a well-established business, what we do is almost every one of our shows has one of 10 different opt-ins built in, and we use text message opt-ins. And it's built into the show. So whatever that show's topic is on, there's a text message opt-in that correlates with what that show is about that then leads that person to take action to text message in, get on our email list, and go into that funnel. That funnel then leads to a specific offer, whether it's a product, a program, a course, whatever the case. So the key thing is know where you are taking people. Yes. Have a specific call to action in every single show. And if you're just getting started, your call to action doesn't need to be a fancy website. It doesn't need to be a landing page. Just literally say, email me, send me a message on Facebook, get in touch with me. If you want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, I can teach you how. Send me an email at blah, 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 blah. And you can reach me by going to da, 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 da. Right?
Absolutely. So simple.
Yeah.
Do you find that the text message opt-ins are higher converting with podcasts as opposed to like, go to this email address and opt in here?
Oh my gosh, unbelievable.
Really?
I had no idea when we started how powerful. That was the best decision that we ever made with our podcast. Bar none, best decision we ever made. We have We have probably 10 times the amount of people opting in from the podcast to the text message opt-ins than to the landing pages. And it is unbelievable, the response that we get. And I think the reason why is because people are on the go.
Mm-hmm.
They're working out, they're walking outside, they're at the office, they're driving in the car. They can't even remember the landing by the time you're done saying it. That's why it's so hard to get traffic to a landing page from your show. But on the flip side, a text message, and I actually say a lot of times on my show, I'll be like, minimize the show right now, go to your text messages, in the to message, type in, blah, 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 blah. And I walk people through it. So absolutely, if there's one recommendation I can make, if you're at the level in your business where you're going to be using an opt-in versus a conversation as your call to action, 100% the text message option is the way to go.
This is so fascinating. Are there any, I guess, like, what platforms do you use or do you recommend for that?
We use LeadDigits, and I definitely recommend them for that. We've actually switched to doing most of our landing pages through ClickFunnels, but we actually keep lead pages like specifically for the text message function because it's so good. And it allows you to do a short 5-digit opt-in, which is really important because, like, for example, the ClickFunnels text message opt-in is a full length phone number. Again, no one's going to remember that. I can't even remember it. So I'm like, if I can't remember it, how's someone else going to remember it? Right. So these little nuances are really, really important. And the LeadDigits text opt-in is a great option. I would put my full recommendation behind that.
That's so fascinating. That was something that I was thinking about the other day. So I'm so glad that you're bringing this up. And then when somebody opts in, for those people who've maybe haven't been on a podcast where that's been an option, what do they get? Do they get it sent to their text, I guess, right?
Yep. So they just text in whatever, so one of ours is the automation report, right? So we have an automation secrets ebook. So that teaches people how to systemize and automate growth in their business, right? So if someone wants to opt in for that, they would type automate report in the message. And then in the to, it would be to 44222. So when someone sends that in, they type in 44222. That's who the message is going to. In the message, it says automate report. They hit send and we say, congratulations. Thanks so much for, requesting the automation secrets report. Just reply with your email and it'll be on its way. They send their email back and then boom, it immediately gets delivered to their email box. And that's all automated. Like, we don't do anything. All we do is set up the initial functionality of the digit. And then from there, it's totally automated. So what happens is they text in, they confirm their email address, that's their opt-in, and then they automatically start receiving each of the pieces of that funnel.
This is so fun. This is such a fun little juicy piece of strategy.
And it's a very profitable thing too. So it's not just fun and exciting, but it's working. So that's why I put my recommendation behind it.
Well, thank you for that. That's amazing.
Definitely.
So what are some things that you are working on right now?
Woo! Well, I added a lot of new team members over the last year. So right now I'm doing a lot of sales coaching, which is my background. So I enjoy that and I'm having fun with that. So we're doing a lot of internal sales coaching and I'm very proud of my team and the progress that they're making. So that's a big focus of mine right now. Last year, we launched the Campaign for Humanity. So we're focused this year on doing a lot more philanthropy work and making donations to causes that we care about, trying to raise awareness, trying to get other entrepreneurs and podcasters to join in kind of random acts of kindness, you might call it. So we do an episode every month to talk about that. We have something called the Impact Report where we share like the number of people that we're bringing clean drinking water to and where we volunteered, where we donated, that type of thing. So I'm very proud of that. And we're just working on launching and relaunching our products and programs because it's just a constant refinement and it's just constantly working to do better, this time than we did last time. And, I have a great team behind me. So, just working to kind of scale up what's already working and improve and correct the things that aren't.
Yeah. That's such a fun thing too, where you're always, every single time you do a launch or every single time you do a podcast, like things just keep getting clarified on the process.
Yes.
So true. So where can people go to learn more about you?
Yeah. Well, I would say definitely Unstoppable Success Radio. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur or a current one, Unstoppable Success Radio is where you can learn how to build a successful business essentially for free. So check that out. On my website, there's 9 different free opt-ins. So audios, videos, PDFs, trainings, all kinds of resources to help you build your business and get in the right wealth building mindset to do it. So you can go to kellyroachcoaching.com to explore everything that we have there waiting for you.
Awesome. So I will link all of that up for you guys. Do you have any last words of advice?
I would just say it's a marathon, not a sprint. So have fun, be kind to yourself, be patient on the journey, and just enjoy the process, right? Yeah. Just enjoy the process, because there's going to be lots of ups and downs every single day, and you have to be in it to win it. You have to know that the degree to which you're willing to fail is the degree to which you're going to succeed. So you got to put yourself in the game if you want to see big things in your future.
Boom. I love it. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on today. I absolutely love your energy. And
thank you.
You're such a great teacher and really gave such great little nuggets of advice today. So I really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Welcome. Awesome. Well, guys, definitely go and subscribe to her podcast. Go and check her out. And I will see you guys in the next episode. I'll talk to you soon.